Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am your host, Charlie Shrem, and you're listening and watching another epic episode of Untold Stories, where together, you and I, twice a week, we get to dive deep with some of crypto's most influential leaders, Bitcoin OGs, those who have been around the space for a super long amount of time, politicians, CEOs, people that we've never heard of, developers. Oh, and my cannabis doctor, my personal everyone. We've had everyone going on 3 years of Untold Stories. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for leaving me positive reviews, for supporting our amazing sponsors that allow us to, there's like a half a dozen people that live off of this show, that work for the show, whether writers, producers, editors. I'm so grateful to all of them, but it's like the show supports like a half a dozen people. I love that, myself included. So thank you guys to all you have to do is listen. And it's like, you don't have to, I'm not asking for anything from anyone. I'm about to start doing some amazing travels in the next coming months. Knock on wood, we'll be doing shows from Spain, France, maybe Turkey, talking to my guest today. He's invited me out to Turkey's blockchain week. So that kind of, when is it? In October, right?
November, something
November.
like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll talk about that. George, thanks for coming on Untold Stories today.
Oh, look, it's my pleasure. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Charlie.
You were starting to tell me earlier on that you had been following kind of the story, but you've been around since the early BitInstant days.
Yeah. Geez, it's a while now, isn't it? Like
over 10 years.
Yeah, it's more than 10 years. It's good that it's a decade, though, so you can at least sort of round it up and go, hey, it's over a decade. It's some number between, 10 and 20.
But I'm only in my 30s, so I've never had an experience of like saying, oh, it was a decade ago before. Like, you don't really do that until you're in your 30s. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. No, it's like, I guess to get started on sort of where I came at Bitcoin, that was probably 2011. Was when I got into it. And I guess like most people were just sort of starting on the forums there and learning about mining, building my own computers off eBay, arbing the MTGOX spread between MTGOX and Australia at the time. I was a poor student and it was like a side thing that I could do to make some money. So I used to see if I could do that arb 3 times a week and I would make like 1 to 2% a week on it, converting the USD to AUD. Back in Australia. So yeah, that's how I got started.
Then it's interesting that you bring that up because other than Mt. Gox, BitInstant, TradeHill, there was like a top Australian exchange. I think it was called like Crypto Exchange. But the guy, I actually had like 10 grand in there and that was a decade ago. Whatever. It's a decade ago. What are you going to
do? Yeah. I think, back then, like, as you know, there was only really a few exchanges. I think the first legit one in Australia was CoinJar.
Yes.
Yeah. They're still going. I've met some of the team there and
they're
doing good stuff.
They're still going? That company's still around? I met the 2 founders a decade ago. Those guys are great. Yeah. I need to write that down. CoinJar, man. Because I'm always trying to have people on the show and just talk to my friends who have been around. They're still like, you have the BitPay guys that are still running. You have all these different, Coinbase, as much as we love to hate them or hate to love them, they're still around. There's so many companies that are, and I'm forgetting a few of them right now, but there's like definitely a few of them that are still around that are the longest running. Oh, the other day there was a debate about it. The Kraken's still around. Their Ripple is 2013 or whatever. There are a bunch of companies now that can cross that 10-year mark. I mean, if you're in the space and if you're a company, especially, and you're still running 10 years later in crypto, I mean, that's like the whole length of the whole industry. So, I mean, what did you do? What did you do then?
Yeah, well, so I guess like I got started into it, just sort of building computers in my room, doing mining, making some money on the side. I taught myself finance just from that, probably like most people, and just sort of hanging out on the forums long enough. And I was doing a electronics engineering job at the time. I was a technician. I was working in a company that was like building cameras and doing stuff. So that was my day job, but unofficially I would, be doing a lot of crypto stuff on the side. In 2014, I decided to take off with a friend of mine, and we went to Hong Kong to start a remittance startup called Bitspark. And Bitspark we were the first to do cash in, cash out remittances around the world. So that was a whole journey in and of itself. You go through the whole vagaries of starting a new company, trying to raise money, trying to keep the lights on. I lived in a I guess you call it like a coffin hotel. Those things that's in Japan.
Yeah. You lived in one of those?
Yeah, for 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that.
What was that like?
Yeah. Well, hey, I was saving money on the startup, and I used to have 7-Eleven sandwiches for lunch every day, and that was sort of my life for a couple of years there while we spent the money elsewhere. But
I'm taking so many notes
great
right now from what you're saying.
Yeah. So, that was a eye-opening experience, basically like how money moves around the world. Because back then as well, it was a lot of people were focused on the transmission of money and how it's going to revolutionize payments and Western Union's not going to exist. One of the things which you learn after doing that for a while is Western Union exists for a very good reason. And it's because they have the physical branch outlets everywhere. And it's always the last mile problem to solve. And then people come along and they try and solve it and they go, oh, we're going to do peer-to-peer. And what you're going to do is you're going to send money in the USA to the Philippines, let's say, and your parents over there are going to go meet some random dude on the side of the street peer-to-peer, and they're going to pick it up from this guy, and they're going to find them through an app and all that sort of thing. A lot of people tried that. Suffice to say, it didn't really work out. People didn't want to go and visit some random. They wanted to go to bricks and mortars. So anyway, we had to adjust to some of those things. And I guess sort of time went on. By the time we get to 2020 and COVID and that sort of thing, we decided to sort of shut that business down and move on. And for myself, I got stuck into DeFi, and that's kind of sort of where my journey began in the DeFi side of things, probably 2019, 2020, something like that. But it's taken a whole journey to get here, from all the different facets of crypto along the way and several markets and all sorts of things. So it's just a way now.
It's cool because you can kind of like jump into so many different things from what you're doing in the early days. You said that you learned finance from the forums. It's kind of funny how years later, I have a very strong readership of 50,000 plus people who depend on my research, and my team and my analysts at Investor Place, they call me like an economist. And I'm like, stop. There's anyone who calls himself an economist is not an economist. I don't even know what that means. I went to school for business management and finance. I just made it through college, but we all learned financial literacy because of Bitcoin, because of those early days. Do you think that it's almost like, do you think over the course of the last 10 years, let's talk about like the whole world. Let's talk about everyone. Do you think that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency will be seen as what made people actually care about what assets they have and how they're being managed?
Yeah, I think definitely, right? Like, so looking at some of the countries that we used to, transact in, like some of those exchanges 5 years ago had 3 million people. I'm specifically thinking of Indodax in Indonesia. And they always had a price premium. And why was that? It was because people were converting their local currency because they knew it was nonsense into something else, usually Bitcoin. And that was just the way to move money. And that's why it always had a premium. People always net buyers there, no matter, what the price was. So, I think it's stuff like that, which kind of illustrates like why people like, what do they really value? And it's you can literally see it expressed in the price of things. Essentially, that's how we navigate the world. That's how, a potato farmer is not going to plant a potato if the price is zero. He's only going to do it if there's something, profitable in it for him. So prices make the world go round, and we have to, ingest that data and realize like what are the stories behind it and why prices are the way they are. And I think in the case of crypto, the cool thing is that because you have this transport layer all around the world, that's like this same unit thing which you can move everywhere. That kind of exposes the differences between different geographies quite well. So that's what I kind of like, is like seeing all of the different weird ways where Bitcoin started and sort of got into people's way of living and transacting and how they move money in different weird currencies around the world. It's pretty interesting.
There are so many Bitcoin and crypto businesses that tried to succeed in that remittance problem. And I remember Bitspark, you guys were like a huge, and your partner, Maxine Ryan and the whole team there, you guys really were growing and trying to solve that remittance problem. Like you said, the last mile. But do you think it was a timing thing? Do you think if someone tried to do like a remittance type of company now, it could be a lot different just because the world is looking at crypto now they won't be maybe converting it at the last mile anymore. They're using the crypto and holding it. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think the problem still persists. That's the first thing. So there still is a need to move money around the world. There still is massive cash needs for most societies around the world. In the case of Bitspark, like we were profitable in doing what we were doing, but the problem was when Corona hit, we had a product for physical cash shops, kind of like a POS system.
Yeah.
Cash in, cash out. The product was for them.
Yeah.
Corona hits, all of them shut their doors, go to zero, right? So all of our customers go to zero. So we had to close up shop essentially. But that kind of model, like as you say, I think these days though, there's so many more people that already have crypto and they've solved it somehow of these sort of wherever they get the fiat in and out. But the market for people that just have crypto balances now is so much bigger than it was 5 years ago. So you can build products and companies based on just people who have crypto. And I think that's the biggest change that's really happened is before it kind of be like, oh, how can I try and like build my product, essentially kind of dumb down the product to hide the crypto stuff so that you can go mass market. But now you can sort of keep the bar kind of pretty high in terms of knowledge of crypto and not have to sort of go to mass market to actually make a viable business. So I think that's pretty cool. And that just opens the world up to more different cool business models.
There's a litmus test happening about that. It's actually interesting that you bring that up. I was discussing that with someone yesterday. It's the UX. We used to build crypto companies for crypto folk like us, like our companies would go on the websites. We knew the lingo. We knew how it worked because we were the demand, right? And eventually we want to be building out businesses for the whole rest of the world, but it's a timing thing. UX needs to work security. There's the whole blockchain trilemma that we can discuss with security, scalability, and decentralization. There's definitely that whole thing. So I'm always trying to figure out where the world is. And there's a litmus test that's happening in court, actually. I've been following the Voyager digital bankruptcy because I have some money stuck up in there. So I've been following that bankruptcy hearing. And I feel like over decades, I've just never learned on keeping my money in centralized exchanges. I never learned. But it is what it is. Listen, to everyone who's got money locked up at Celsius and everything else, I'm still getting screwed too. It's not you. It's just it's a 10-year-old industry. A little bit more than that, decade. Going back to decade. But there's a litmus test because the judge was talking about whether customers sufficiently understood the difference between USD and USDC in their wallets. And there's a lot of people who are now like saying that they didn't know that's what's happening there. So it's definitely a conversation that people are having.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always thought that, like, how you've seen order books you used to see a lot more order books denominated in just USD. And that usually indicated that exchange had a local banking connection.
Oh, yeah.
But you saw the local banking connections all diminish and get screwed over time. And then pretty much, who has an actual real bank as an exchange now? It's pretty much like there's one bank that's Silvergate, right? And there's maybe a couple of others on the West Coast. But like you got Coinbase, I guess, and Kraken, but everyone else uses stablecoins now, which kind of makes sense if you're an exchange because then you don't have to worry about all of the fiat nonsense.
Stablecoins were amazing. Were like the game changer for the industry.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you go anywhere like, I'm in Turkey at the moment. I'm a bit of a nomad. So I just sort of drift around the world to whatever countries. But when I was here recently, like you go to the local OTC shop, which, by the way, I was walking around one day and saw 8 of them. And one of them was literally branded just Tether. So you walk in there and then they just like look at an ID and then you can just get cash. But they were accepting like Tether on Tron network and they're accepting Bitcoin and that was it. So there wasn't really many options, but the options that are there are kind of interesting and a bit weird and varied here and there. So, but it always involves stablecoins.
It always involves stablecoins, and this actually is a good lead into Solana, because if the whole world moves into digital finance as we know it now, you're going to have hundreds of different chains that are purpose built and purpose driven, that are good at certain things and not good at others. You're going to have chains that are built for transacting only, but you wouldn't keep your money there. Then you have other things like potentially Bitcoin, where you wouldn't transact a lot, but you would feel more safe keeping your money there. And it's going to be like a point graded system. However, it's done down the road. To give everyone a little bit of background of what you've been working on now, you started a company called Step Finance, which is like the front page of Solana, if you will. So like if Reddit's the front page of the internet and this podcast is the front page of all crypto, then then you're the front page of Solana. And I've been spending a lot of time. I definitely put that coin in the top 10 right now of like the big majors, right? And I've been spending a lot of time, and I always like to take, and I think everyone should do this, is understand the top 10. Go to CoinMarketCap, look at what the top 10 are, top 15, top 20, and understand what makes them all different. And if you could really understand that, the differences between them, then you'll understand the whole industry. You'll understand the whole market. And so I'm curious to dive down that hole, because Solana built itself on being hyper fast and secure. And at the same time, if you're talking about someone in Turkey doing a remittance to someone in, let's just say, Canada, they would need something hyper fast. Whereas if someone comes along and says, well, Solana isn't as decentralized, well, maybe it's not built to keep large amounts of money there. Or maybe it is. Like, you tell me, how do you want to jump into this?
Yeah. So I think it's always good to first start with the philosophy of a chain. And that's, I don't know about you, but that's how I explain
Brilliant.
crypto to. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Everyone, repeat that again.
Start with the philosophy behind a cryptocurrency, and that's how you get to actually learn what it's about. So, as you say, there's a lot of cryptocurrencies out there, and they're all trying to do different things, right? We started with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's kind of moved into being this digital gold thing now. Cool, great, but it's not. Bitcoin's not trying to build at the moment really like apps on top of it and essentially a financial system. So there are other chains that are trying to build a financial system, and gold is a valuable thing. So is the financial system. So like these are also valuable things that we should strive to decentralize and be able to transact with anywhere in the world. So, okay, cool. Now we understand that we do need financial apps. So what's the best way to build them? Well, if we build financial apps, let's say it's like getting a loan, or maybe it's like we say, we were talking about exchanges before and how they can like disappear with people's money.
Yeah.
Can we have decentralized exchanges that all do that in the code, and that's all transparent and open source? These things I think are fundamentally useful and valuable things, and we should absolutely build them. And what Solana is trying to do, it's a smart contracting platform. It's also built for speed and scalability in mind. So it means that if you're to have this financial system, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on with this system. So there's going to be a lot of people transacting. There's going to be a lot of people paying for things, getting loans, putting money on DEXs and stuff, yield farming, whatever it might be. So it also has to be low cost. And we're talking like not just a couple of dollars per transaction. We're talking like 1 cent or less. I think that's something which we should achieve to be is to have a decentralized financial system that's cheap and easy to operate. So essentially, that's what Solana is trying to do. Now, how does it stack up against the rest of the people that write the same words on their website? Yes, there's a lot of people that write the word DeFi on their website and say that they have these different things. But I guess what Solana has is it has a critical mass. Last year, it didn't. Last year, it was a brand new thing, one of these new chains up and coming that no one's ever heard of. But really what happened was you went from really like 3 apps on the chain when we started Step. We came out of a hackathon essentially to be like a portfolio manager for those 3 apps. But now in the latest hackathon, you had 550 submissions. You've got over like 100 different protocols just of like DeFi different things. we ourselves, we have to integrate with the entire ecosystem to display essentially where your money is at any one time. Steps like that window to sort of show you where your money is in all these different protocols. So we're quite familiar with all of the different ecosystem. But so the thing is, like, it does have that critical mass now. It has got all of these different verticals that people think of when they talk about DeFi. It's got your dexes. Not only does it have one, it's got like 5. Okay, it's got lenders. Not only does it have one, it's got 6. It's got like futures contract platforms, options things. It's got NFTs. By the way, one of the largest marketplaces in the world, Magic Eden for NFTs, is now in some metrics larger than OpenSea.
I saw that. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So whatever people think about NFTs, it's like, okay, cool, but it's a thing and it's happening and people are paying money for it. So all of these different things, right? That's why it has critical mass and that's why it's important. So you've got the Ethereum ecosystem as well, which, hey, that's sort of where I started learning about all these sorts of things. Great. It's got a lot of money and capital behind it. And it's got a lot of these other verticals as well. Great. We can talk about the differences perhaps between them. But yeah, I would just say that, Solana right now has a good critical mass. It's got a good developer community. And you can like kind of tell that from the people just launching new apps.
It's going through that like early Ethereum days time when Ethereum, like a lot of Ethereum wallets were getting hacked and people were like saying, oh, Ethereum was hacked and Ethereum was hacked. Like this was like the 2016, 2017 days. It's kind of going through that process now. Although like, it's never like the chain itself, but it's usually apps on top of it. It's like, remember we used to make the jokes that, oh, the dollar's been hacked because when a bank failed or something like that. But let's start with the consensus algorithm. I understand proof of work. We talk about proof of work mining a lot. King Vitalik is the new proof of stake chairman now. He's going to be pushing that come September. Although we're going to spend like the last 30 minutes of this episode talking about what you think if the Ethereum hard fork is actually going to happen. But how is Solana built and how is it different?
Yeah, so I guess Solana is maybe what you would say a somewhat derivative of proof of stake, where they call it proof of history. Proof of elapsed time, essentially, where you have a number of node validators. Right now, there's like 2,000 different node validators, I think, that are on the Solana network. And they're the ones who validate and verify the blocks. And essentially, you can delegate your soul to these validators and you get paid a reward for doing that. So in that respect, it's quite similar to proof of stake.
It's like delegated proof of stake?
Similar to delegated proof of stake. You do have, there's like some technicalities, which I'm probably not the best person to talk to, but
sure.
It would be very similar to like delegated proof of stake they saw originally with like BitShares or something like that, which has, high performance and those sorts of things in mind. So essentially, you have liquid staking, you have the ability to vote for delegates which are good, essentially, and doing their job. And what does good mean? Well, it means that they're verifying blocks. If they say that they're a delegate and their node's offline, then don't vote for them. So, it's got that sort of mechanism to it as well. So at the end of the day, you do have a network of active validators. And people are often like, oh, the Solana network, it's not decentralized. Can you like turn the on and off button again? It's like, cool. Which one of the validators has the on and off button? Like, you pointed out.
Point. Well, what's happening there in those times that there were network pauses? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some teething problems, shall we say, with
it's the early days.
Yeah, it's early days, right? So, like a bunch of different reasons why that happened. Essentially, for the most part, there was a lot of activity on the network, a lot of bots spamming transactions. Then those transactions would clog up what's essentially the first person to verify blocks, the leader. So that first person to verify, like in delegated proof of stake, when you know in advance, who's actually at random, by the way, who's going to be validating the blocks. So a lot of spam slowing that down, slows the next person down, and so on. So it's kind of like, okay, but these are also things which show that people are using it as well. So
these are stress
Solana,
tests, we call them.
It's like right now, Solana, last I checked today, was like 2,300 transactions per second. Ethereum's like 7 or something at the moment, or however many it is. I don't know. Yeah. It's in that. So we're talking about like a different level of activity here, and how Ethereum solved the scalability problem is going to layer 2s and L2s. The issue with that is it silos a lot of those programs, applications, and liquidity. So essentially, you have to move and bridge your funds to an L2, and you can't like address any of the other stuff that's going on Ethereum within a single transaction. You have to cross the bridge first before you can do that. So you can only live in your little walled garden. And hey, that's great. Yes, it solves scaling for that particular app. But in the case of Solana, you've got the entire L1. There is no L2s. The entire L1 is addressable. So in the case of, say, Serum, which is, so Serum's the order book DEX, the equivalent of something like a Binance or something like that, where you can have an order book and you can post orders. You can address a transaction on Serum the same as you can a lender, and you can do that in the same transaction if you want, or you can transfer funds and then deposit it somewhere else. And there is no liquidity silos. So that's why I would say it's quite an interesting and compelling proposition, because there is no siloed liquidity pools. And those liquidity pools have been siloed because of scalability issues with how Ethereum has managed things, currently and been able to grow. And hey, Ethereum 2, all the best. Maybe that'll solve it, with sharding and all this kind of stuff. Sure. Great. But we're not there yet. So at the moment, Solana's doing it and it's getting a bunch of traction for doing so.
Okay, so let's take a step back for a second, because your opinion is very different than a lot of the guests that we've had recently in when it comes to like the L2, L1 siloed information future. So a lot to give an overview, a lot of the chains, Ethereum included, are moving towards this, like even Bitcoin to an extent, like layer 2s. Let's build these apps on top. The layer 1 needs to be the state that never has changed. And I understand the arguments why, because making changes to the main chain is hard, and no one has ever figured out how to like do that fast but protect it. And then at the same time, you're having to wait to transact and everything. But I understand the downsides. What you're telling me is that everything is siloed, which is what we're trying to solve in the first place. So I get that completely. And it would be really wonderful if you didn't have to have multiple chains and multiple layers, because then, like you said, a lender and a DEX could all work within each other. So mortgage applications and different type of things can all be built in one smart contract. That's very attractive. That's very attractive for a lot of people. Wow.
And how I see it evolving as well is like let's say, in our case, a lot of the people that come to Step are brand new to crypto. They don't know that Ethereum exists. They usually come through something like Solana or Binance Chain or something else, and they've heard about these lenders and these different things. So they come into this ecosystem with no foresight of what's gone before. So if you go and tell them that one of these other chains is doing it, it's like, okay, don't really care. Like, I'm already used to that. But also, like, if you told them that you had to cross a bridge every time you had to go and do something new, they probably wouldn't want to do that. But also, I think people treat these L2s, new users treat L2s kind of like how you would think about an L1, because like, let's say you're a new user. Are you going to tell them, oh, okay, you want to go to optimism on Ethereum? Okay, what you got to do first? You got to get some ETH. So you got to go to a centralized exchange, you got to get KYC, then you get some ETH. And then what you got to do is you got to go to the bridge, and then you go to the bridge and you got to move the ETH. But by the way, you need some gas to pay on the other side. So like, that's why you need the ETH first. But then you need to get the USDC and also cross it to the bridge of the L2. Cool. Now you're on the L2. It's like all of these different like steps before you can actually get started. Whereas like exchanges don't have direct connections to L2s yet. So I think the way that people think of it is maybe exchanges will have direct connections to L2s, but then they'll just think of it, oh, this is Optimism chain, or this is, a ZK rollup,
good point,
or something like that. So they will just think of it in terms of L1. So I think it's kind of a losing battle to be expecting people to understand these L2s, but also to like, people want to transact on just one thing. They want to know that, hey, I'm on the Solana chain. That's what I'm on right now. I'm not on like 2 or 3 different things all over the place. That's technically the same thing, but not really. And the security comes from the same place, but not really. Like,
I feel like Solana is almost like Bitcoin, is the closest thing to Bitcoin that I've seen, because when you're using Bitcoin, you're using Bitcoin. But when you're using, a lot of times using Ethereum, I'm connecting my MetaMask, I'm transacting. I forgot to change the chain. Sometimes on my MetaMask, I'm transacting on like a completely different chain. I'm doing all these transactions because the addresses are the same. So I'm like, what's going on here? It's confusing.
It is confusing, especially for new people as well. So if you just give people, here's one system, it's called Solana, it works. By the way, it's got all the apps that everyone else does. It's got JPEGs on it that you can go and buy NFTs. It's got lending platforms. It's got DEXs. It's got all this stuff. You have this one wallet. Let's say it's Phantom is a popular one, or there's other ones as well. I think there's like 10 of them now at the moment. So there's quite a lot of choice there. So like, it's just one thing that you can give people rather than trying to understand the intricacies of these different kind of stuff. And I think as crypto people, we understand the intricacies, right? But we have to take a step back and be like, do people really want to learn about 3 different L2s to like achieve one thing that they're looking to do? Like, is that moving the world forward in any way? So yeah, look, that's just sort of how I see it and how I approach it. And that's why I think Solana has, some good formula there.
Guys, I am so excited to talk about our newest presenting sponsor, SafePal. SafePal is an all-in-one solution. You got a beautiful hardware wallet. You have this amazing fireproof cipher. You got a mobile wallet, an extension wallet similar to MetaMask. You're talking about an all-in-one solution for all of your crypto needs. Founded in 2018, SafePal is a Binance Labs-backed Singapore-based company, the venture arm, where their mission is to make crypto secure and simple for everyone. You got cross-chain swapping, trading services, and more. SafePal supports over 40 different blockchains. I mean, check this out. Look at this. If you back up your private seed in this beautiful metal SafePal backup here and you keep it in your safe, fires or water or nothing degrading over time, you should not be backing up your crypto on pieces of paper. I mean, look at this. Look at the S1 here. It's so cool. This is the hardware wallet. You're talking, I'm used to using the Trezor or the Ledger wallet, but SafePal is a lot better because not only do you get the hardware wallet and the backup cipher, but you also get the mobile wallet, the extension on your Google Chrome or whatever Firefox you use. So it all works together. You don't have to worry about man-in-the-middle attacks and everything like that. You can go to safepal.com, use the coupon code Charlie, and you'll get any of these amazing products. The extension wallet is free, the mobile wallet is free, the hardware wallet and the backup are really, really well priced. It's all super safe and secure, and I love it. I mean, there's no other way you should be using your crypto than SafePal. Speaking of bringing the world forward, and you being a digital nomad, you're living in Turkey, and I get frustrated because a lot of times I'm here in the US and I'm having to explain to people that Bitcoin and crypto are not a US thing, and the majority of the utility of why it even exists and people use it is not a United States thing. Like you said, you went for a walk and you saw 8 different OTC shops. There's a reason they exist on the street level, right? I mean, Turkey, tell me more about what it's like living in Turkey right now with the whole crypto community. My family moved over to the US from the former Ottoman Empire. So I'm in the northern Syrian region, that's where I'm from. And that was Ottoman. So Turkish food, Syrian food. My family lived there since they went from after the Spanish Inquisition, they went from Spain in the late 1400s. Family went to Turkey. So, I mean, it's in my blood. Tell me what it's like. I mean, I just love baklava.
That's amazing. Okay. You need to come visit then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, when I first got here, a couple of weeks in, I reached out to some friends. I ended up having lunch with one of the exchange operators here, and he was running a very big and successful exchange. And a couple of things were really interesting that he said. Number one, in 2021, there was, for most of the year, they had 1 million signups a month to the exchange in Turkey, local Turks.
Oh, wow.
So that's the first thing. Absolutely massive, right? Number two, he said about 1/3 of the country has a crypto exchange account, usually Binance or some other one, right? And I said, wow, that's insane, man. Are you sure about those numbers? And then he said, okay, let me ask the waiters. And we had 2 waiters at the restaurant we were at. And he said, oh, which one of you has a crypto exchange account? One of them did. So that was a 50% hit rate.
Oh, my God.
And so this is a very crypto savvy society that's adopted it. Now, why? Well, people may have seen on the news about the lira. The lira, the currency is not doing too well. It went from, what was it, 5 lira to the dollar a year or 2 ago, and now it's, I don't know, 17 or something now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had money in lira and that's how you saved, you get wrecked. So people were looking for an outlet, and crypto is one of those outlets. You had a lot of companies pop up and fill that void. And it's also like, especially Istanbul, like Istanbul, old Constantinople, like it's always been a crossroads for traders and people doing stuff and marketplaces.
Oh my God. No one realizes you're talking about like Istanbul was Constantinople, you know, the center of like the Byzantine and Roman empires. But even today, Turkish Airlines is the largest airline in the world. If you go somewhere where you need to cross half of the world, you're probably stopping over in Turkey, as you should. And Turkish Airlines is awesome, by the way. But yeah, like it's the center. Like if you look at a map of the US, of the world and everything like that, look at a map of the US. It really is such a great place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's still got a lot of that that vibe and soul to it. So I think, yeah, like if you were to look at it as a crypto destination, it's definitely up there. In the case of Step, all of our website to date has been in English, and I think as well the crypto community maybe doesn't appreciate that English is this is not the world. The world is not English language speaking. Like we're very lucky that we speak this international language, but the rest of the world doesn't. So are there ZK rollup documentation written in Turkish and Vietnamese and, Thai and whatever else? Probably not, right?
I don't even understand it in English.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there is an opportunity there that there is actually a really large sort of untapped market still yet to be had in crypto of just translating what's happening in the rest of the world. So for us, Turkey's number 2 in terms of the number of users that visit Step. And then it's like other places, whether it's, I think, Thailand, Nigeria, a bunch of other places. So I think that's super exciting. Now, I'm personally excited about that because I think that's why we got into it in the early days, is we wanted a new financial system that made the world a better place. And I think that if we can essentially disseminate the information behind crypto, whatever that might be, I think that's just going to lead to better outcomes in the world. So yeah, I'm super happy about trying to grow things here or elsewhere.
There's this anti-maximalist feeling, I should say, or not groups of people, but there's like an anti-maximalist type of thread going through all the crypto social world right now, especially on crypto Twitter and things like that. And I kind of like that because maximalism was creeping up in a bad way. And it was coming from Bitcoin maximalists, Ethereum maximalists, Solana maximalists, everyone just attacking each other. But now there's this like anti-maxi maximalism. And I've always been like a decentralization maximalist. We've talked about it on the show for 3 years. And you got to, like you said, look at the philosophy of every chain and you judge every chain on their own merits. And even if they're in early on and they're not fully decentralized yet, as long as they're on that like path to decentralization, then they got a good check mark in my book. But I'm loving this, like, hey, it doesn't matter anymore. We just need cryptos to be one and only. I love that. It's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as well, people should appreciate like these different chains and yes, they're all different and they're trying to do different things. That's okay. That's all right. Not everything has to be the next Bitcoin, and not everything has to be a one winner takes all. Like I absolutely think that it's going to be a multi-chain world, and it already is. And there's no way to stop that. What are you going to do? Everyone's going to be like, I don't follow the logic of maxis. It's kind of like, okay, let's say everyone does use some chain. Does that mean like some random dude in Siberia who wants to make a chain is just not going to anymore? Like, no, like smart people with a laptop are going to go and invent something cool, and they're only going to invent it if it's useful. So
maximalism comes from, maximalism is very simple. What it comes from is basically you decide that you want to, maybe subconsciously, you want to be a popular person or you want to grow your influence in a community. There's a fast way to do that. The fastest way to do that is to pigeonhole yourself into like a very controversial or uncontroversial opinion. And you just bang your drum on that one opinion and you grow faster than someone like you or I who likes to dissect things and understand them. And that person's influence grows faster. But once they're on the top, they're pigeonholed. They can't. You're stuck. You can't change your opinion because you've built your whole base on that. That's where maximalism comes from. So now but the funny thing is no one really cares. So all it took was some people that were maximalists to say, hey, I was wrong. Let me start to understand this stuff. And then the whole house of cards collapsed over the last like 6 months. Bear markets always do that. Bear markets, you've been around 10 years, a decade, right? Like the bear markets always like cut out the fat and like weed out the bullshit and like just kind of cleans it out. Cleans out. It's like going on a cleanse. Cleans the body. Speaking of that though, man, I'm great at my transitions today. I don't want to forget about talking about, I want to get your opinion on the Ethereum hard fork. Vitalik yesterday announced a date around September 15th. The difficulty bomb that he's been talking about for 7-8 years now is coming. Pretend my listeners don't really understand. Can you give a little bit of an overview of what's happening here?
Well, I mean, we now have a date for Ethereum switching to proof of stake, right? Which it's, what is it, 13th of September or something? Or
around that. My actually 5th year wedding anniversary and the date I got released from prison is the date of the Ethereum merge.
There you go. Special day. Special day.
It's a great day.
Yeah. So the way that Ethereum currently validates itself is through a lot of people doing proof of work. So a lot of GPUs, mining and mining in general, right? So Ethereum's going to be switching to proof of stake. And I guess the theory with the difficulty bomb is, well, like, what if people don't stop mining? So to avoid that, this difficulty bomb just makes it super ridiculously impossible to mine. So the assumption is that everyone will just switch to proof of stake, anyway, because you won't be able to mine. In terms of forks and those sorts of things, I haven't been reading up on a lot of those forks, but I know there's like, are people looking to fork the chain just before the difficulty bomb to erase it and keep the proof of work? Like we already have a proof of work Ethereum chain. It's called Ethereum Classic. Like that was the original fork back in the day.
Ethereum Classic merged after the DAO because after the DAO, so there was so actually it's a great point to bring that up because we're talking about, like having Ethereum was so early on and it didn't have like a lot of these, basically it's smart contracting language. Solidity wasn't well fleshed out enough. And a hacker was able to get in and basically drain one of the first smart contracts, and a lot of people on Ethereum lost money. So the Ethereum was so small at the time, you were able to get all of the miners, aka the Ethereum Foundation, together, and I'm like dumbing it down a little bit, but they rolled back the chain. They basically froze the hackers. And a lot of people were pissed off about that because they were like, well, you just basically gave up immutability. If you're going to freeze a hacker's funds, what if you freeze Charlie or George's funds? So people say fork that chain. Remember Barry Silbert was a big proponent of it and a bunch of other people. Ethereum Classic's still around. It's doing very well, actually. So you're saying that because of Ethereum Classic's existence already, there won't be another fork because the Ethereum people can just mine Ethereum Classic? That's a very interesting point to make.
Oh, they could be. Like, people can fork Ethereum at any time, right? As long as the hash rate sort of goes in that direction.
Sure.
I would say it depends on exchange support and buy-in from them. So I guess you remember with Bitcoin Cash fork and Ethereum, like essentially when these things happen, miners look at it from an economics perspective. I have X amount of gigahashes. What am I going to direct my hashing power to? This one is, the baseline profitability. This one's 5% more profitable. Okay, I'm going over here. And I'll go over here for 7 days as long as I can mine that extra 5%, and then I can maybe dump it and regain more profitability then. So it'll come down to, if there are additional forks, are there exchange support for that? Are people actually buying those tokens? And then that makes it actually profitable or not to mine. And then the miners will make the decision. Like the miners who have got this sunk cost of infrastructure, they're still going to look to mine something. I guess the question is what?
And that's my point. It's they're not being given two choices here. The choices are shut off or shut off. That's the only choice, right?
Yeah.
There's no, so I don't understand. And I need to read, has the difficulty been it's already preset. So it's not like miners need to agree to anything. It's happening regardless, right?
Yeah, I believe, it happens at a specific block height. Yeah.
It's already baked in. It's not like where with something else like a Bitcoin hard fork, everyone have to vote and it'd be like a vote. This is already baked in. So you have all these miners who are basically, it's like buying a car knowing that at a certain point it's just not going to work anymore. So when they bought the car, you're saying maybe they knew that and they've already planned now to do something. Can you mine? And this is a question I should already know the answer to. Can you mine with an Ethereum miner on another chain? Let's find out.
I think like most Ethereum miners are still GPUs, right? So you should have
they're not ASICs. You're not mining Ethereum on ASICs, right? So yeah, I think you can.
Yeah. So yeah, and certainly like Ethereum Classic will be compatible as well. I guess, where's this hash rate? But as you said, didn't the miners already know that this was going to happen? Like, this is not a new thing. People have been talking about this for years. So I always said, why are miners keep investing in a lot of the mining infrastructure for Ethereum when they know it's like literally has an end date? And what are you going to do then? Like, I guess their hope is to either sell off the miners that they have or repurpose it to another chain, but the other chain might not have the liquidity to support that, So it's going to be an interesting time next month. That's for sure.
I totally agree. And I'm looking forward to it. And I think that it'll actually be like this bullish catalyst just because you'll have the election season coming in the US and a lot of regulations hopefully soon. I want to jump back to Solana before we end the show. One of my analysts, Matt, brilliant guy. He's very, very bullish on Solana. I was telling you earlier at our research firm, Investor Place. He wrote a question. He loves Solana so much. He said he wants to ask you what your thoughts on Solana's approach to mainstream adoption. He said the phone, the IRL store, Solana Pay are super cool. Onboarding people to Solana has always been incredibly simple and fast. But outside of his friends and artists, his friends that are artists and tech enthusiasts, it's hard to find reasons to try onboarding other people other than like, hey, buy some of this because it could be really cool in the future. So he's just curious what Solana's thoughts on like mainstream adoption are, because Bitcoin and Ethereum have gone that route of like blockchains are destined to exist behind the scenes for consumers like AWS. But Solana seems that's going after the user. Like you said, the last mile.
Yeah. So I guess you think of how do these blockchains currently develop products in general? So how does Bitcoin develop, quote, a product? Well, there is no Bitcoin organization that directs things. It's just like something that exists and someone thinks up a product. But Bitcoin is quite limited, as we said before, in what it can offer. And okay, maybe that's by design. Ethereum as well, the Ethereum Foundation exists, but it's not like a thing that's actively going out there and trying to do something. So sure. I guess the cool thing on the face of it is that at least Solana has some sort of organization which is trying to move the needle forward. And the thesis is, well, okay, mobiles are a thing. Everyone has a mobile in the world. There's billions of them. And they're only growing in terms of bandwidth and capacity and speed and blah, blah, blah. And they're in every country. Cool. Okay. Now, the next question is everyone on crypto using mobiles for stuff? And I think the answer to that is no. Like most of us, for mobiles, pretty much what you have in crypto is like a wallet. And even if you have a wallet, like you don't really store much money in that wallet. And you kind of store it there for what purpose, really? It's like the one-off chance that you walk past like a Bitcoin supporting pizza shop or something, and then you can, hey, I can go and pay for it. And that's cool, but it's not really huge, right? So what Solana's trying to do is trying to bring these two things together. If everyone has a phone, phones have a lot of capability these days, crypto needs to grow. What can we do to help grow it? So look, I back in the Hong Kong days, I was speaking to HTC when they had their HTC crypto phone. And I was sort of helping advise them on a few different things. And we're trying to get remittances working in the app at the time. Look, great phone, came out. It's cool to see HTC getting behind it. But it only sold, I think, a few thousand units and it didn't really catch on. So when I first heard about the Solana phone, I was like, oh, here we go again. Like, it's another thing
you've been there, done that.
Been there, done that. And lots of people tried. But you know what? At least they're trying. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's not about the phone. It's actually about the app store, I think. So the app store, which they're trying to push with this as well, is essentially like Apple and Google. A, they have a monopoly. B, it's like what do they take for the average app transaction? It's like 40%.
Crazy.
C, they don't even allow most crypto things in general. So having just a new app store exist and flourish with a bunch of apps is going to be cool. And at least Solana has a very active dev system, probably one of the largest around, that is active in like building apps for it. So I guess that's the thesis: is have a phone, have a cool app store, get a bunch of devs to build stuff for it, and then put it out there and see if it works and see if it moves the needle. If it doesn't, okay, cool. It's not like, Solana's going to go to zero or anything. Like, it's Solana Labs, some company that's funding it. So whatever, cool. It either works or it doesn't. If it works, great. 1 billion people in the world now have access to financial applications. If it doesn't, okay, well, next thing. So yeah, look, I'm pretty bullish on at least them. Yeah, just the whole concept of at least trying something new. Because otherwise, what are we doing? We're talking to the same people all the time. It's the same crypto people. They're using multiple chains. We've all heard all of the arguments all the time. Like, you and I could spout off all of the Bitcoin arguments for the last 10 years. They're literally the same thing, right? from back then. Yeah. So at least it's trying something new. That's
the amount
what I
of
could say.
eye rolling that I do when I'm browsing Twitter is just, I don't even respond anymore most of the time to some of these things. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
George, I really appreciate you doing the show today, man. Like, I've been thinking about splitting up my shows into like parts, like splitting it, like have this into 2 episodes, just because there's a lot of information, chock full of information, stories and stuff like that. Let's see. I actually would love some feedback from the listeners. If you guys would like me to split up these shows into like 30-minute episodes instead of the longer 1-hour shows, shoot me an email. It's on untoldstories.com. George, you're the man. I can't wait to hang out with you in Turkey. Hopefully in November. It's my birthday week, so maybe we'll do it then. We'll hang out.
Let's do it.
We'll eat some amazing food and meet in person. So really appreciate you taking the time and coming on Untold Stories. How can my listeners follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at George_Harrap. That's probably the best place to find me. Otherwise, anything related with Step Finance, I'll be lurking around in the Discord.
I mean, amazing. I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Charlie.